All right, so today's deep dive. You guys have sent us on quite a journey this time.
Yeah.
We're tackling the world of Ion K. Panopoulos.
Who is this guy?
I don't even know where to start. Musician, composer, painter, filmmaker, writer.
Multi-hyphenate?
Yeah, is there anything this guy can't do?
Well, that's what we're going to find out, right?
Yeah.
So I was looking at his bio, and it's really interesting how his background might have shaped his music.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he was born in Athens, and although he's mostly self-taught in a lot of different genres, he did actually study classical guitar formally.
Interesting.
Yeah, and some traditional Greek instruments, too, like the bouzouki.
Nice.
Yeah.
And that's not all.
Right.
He's got his fingers in so many different creative pies.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Well, his bio says that he studied at the School of Fine Arts.
Oh, wow.
And a film school. It's like he can't get enough.
So we're talking a visual artist
Uh-huh.
and a filmmaker.
And he's a published author, too. He wrote a book of short stories.
Oh, wow. Ion is quite the Renaissance man.
This guy's a real creative force, isn't he?
Yeah, for sure. It makes you wonder how those different art forms might feed into each other, you know?
Yeah. It's like he's this multifaceted, always exploring new ways to express himself.
Definitely.
He even uses a special term to describe his music. Have you heard of semiological counterpoint?
Semiological counterpoint.
That's a new one. What is that exactly?
I know, right? It's not your everyday term. Well, luckily he explains it in his album notes.
Okay.
He defines it as, well, like going against expectations, turning things upside down, creating these intriguing juxtapositions.
So like popular culture turned into high art?
That's a good example, yeah. Or like the pleasure you find in pain, like with sadomasochism.
Yeah.
Is this semiological counterpoint? Do you think that's something unique to Ion, or is it rooted in older artistic movements?
That's a great question. You know, it does remind me of some earlier movements like Dadaism or Surrealism,
Right.
which were also all about disrupting conventional thinking and kind of shaking things up in the art world.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think what Ion does that's different
Yeah.
is he takes this concept and applies it across different mediums and genres,
Interesting.
creating this blend of tradition and subversion
Yeah.
that's very much his own.
It's like his signature, I guess.
And it seems like this semiological counterpoint pops up all over his work, especially in the latest album, Room Strike.
Right.
The liner notes suggest that it was born out of a period of inactivity, maybe during the pandemic.
Forced inactivity, like a strike.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because the creation of the album itself embodies that semiological counterpoint.
How so?
Well, you've got artistic output born from forced idleness. He's on strike, but he's still working.
I see what you mean. It's a strike against inactivity.
Exactly. And he even draws a parallel between that situation and the inherent uselessness of art, you know, in a practical sense.
Right, because what's the practical use of art?
Exactly. But that doesn't stop it from existing.
Yeah, it's pretty profound when you think about it. Art persists even when the world feels like it's standing still. It makes you wonder if that isolation actually fueled his creativity.
Oh, for sure. And musically speaking, you know, he's blending traditional and modern elements.
Yeah.
It's this really rich soundscape that's both familiar and unexpected at the same time.
So the semiological counterpoint is there in both the creation of the album, and in the music itself.
Absolutely. It's everywhere.
To really understand this, we should probably look at some specific tracks, right?
Absolutely, yeah. That's where his range and this counterpoint thing really come alive.
Okay, well, the first one that jumped out at me was Against Amanes Porcine Anapaste.
Τον πάλε ποτέ ιώνων και ολαίων και λιδών και φρυγών ελθόντες.
Oh, that's a mouthful. What's that one all about?
I know, what a title, right?
It definitely grabs your attention.
It does, yeah.
I think it's probably the most powerful example of semiological counterpoint on the whole album.
Really?
Yeah. So picture this. It starts with a text from 1936, this text that actually denounces Anatolian music.
Okay.
But here's the twist. It's being recited in a Byzantine chanting style over, guess what? Anatolian music.
Oh, the irony.
Right. He's using the very thing being criticized to make his point.
Yeah, that's great. Is there more?
There's more. It doesn't stop there. Right after that, there's a national anthem.
What?
Yeah, but it's for a fictional republic.
A kingdom of the most serene people's Republic of Banana.
And the lyrics, get this, they're intentionally meaningless. grammatically correct, but they're empty of any real meaning.
Is he trying to be satirical?
Exactly. He's playing with language and subverting this traditional concept of what a national anthem should be. By doing this, he's highlighting how much we rely on language to make sense of the world.
Yeah.
But what happens when that language is unreliable?
Right.
When the words themselves are empty?
It forces us to look for meaning elsewhere.
Exactly.
Maybe in the sounds of the words.
Yes.
Or the way they're arranged.
The way they're arranged.
Yeah. It's like he's turning language into an abstract art form.
I love that. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
He's playing with the building blocks of communication.
Right.
It makes me think about, how much of our understanding of anything is based on these systems of meaning that we've all agreed upon. What happens when those systems get disrupted?
Yeah, deep thoughts.
I know.
But it makes sense.
Yeah.
Within this whole concept of semiological counterpoint.
This one's my favorite on the album.
Okay, you got to hear this. What else is there? What other hidden gems are on this album?
Well, there's this track called The Ballad of the Miserable Sunday.
Miserable Sundays.
Yeah, I know.
I've had a few of those.
We all have.
Tell me about this one.
Well, this one's actually from way back in 1997. So it predates Room Strike.
Okay.
But it's still a great example of his semiological counterpoint.
Okay, so we're jumping back in time a bit.
Uh-huh.
What's the story behind this one?
Well, it captures that, that melancholy you feel on Sunday evenings.
Oh, yeah.
Even if the day was actually a good one.
I know exactly what you mean. That Sunday scaries feeling.
Exactly.
That is something everyone experiences.
And that's the counterpoint right there. Finding sadness in what should be a happy time.
Right, yeah.
And what's really cool is that the music itself embodies this too.
Really?
Yeah, it's written in a major key, which is usually happy, but the lyrics are all about sadness.
So he's messing with our emotions on multiple levels.
Exactly.
That's great.
What else? Well, we should definitely talk about the Dervish Boy.
The Dervish Boy.
And you can practically smell the hashish smoke in this one.
Yeah.
It's got this mischievous energy.
Yeah.
Like we're eavesdropping on a late night gathering in some hidden den.
Yeah.
It's definitely giving me some Retta to Go vibes.
Yeah. It's got that classic Rubetico flavor, but with a modern edge.
Yes.
Now, when I think hashish song, I think like psychedelic, trippy.
Right. You'd expect something maybe with a full band.
Yeah.
Really spacey. But this one is acoustic.
This musical torch being passed down through generations.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, now this one is powerful.
Okay.
The Girl Drug Mule.
The Girl Drug Mule.
Okay.
And this one is based on a true story. Okay.
And it's actually 2 parts.
Interesting.
And the whole thing is based on this true story about this model who was arrested for drug possession in Hong Kong and then later acquitted.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's more than just storytelling, though.
Στη μακρινή Ασία, στο σάκο μέσα βρέθηκε η άσπρη ουσία.
Right.
It really makes you think about justice systems, cultural differences, and how stories like this get portrayed in the media.
Yeah.
There's a lot packed into these 2 tracks.
It sounds like it.
Musically.
Yeah.
It's really interesting how he conveys that whole emotional roller coaster. The capture is this mournful minor key lament.
Right.
But then the acquittal shifts into this almost celebratory major key feel.
Interesting.
You really feel that sense of relief and vindication.
And by presenting those contrasting musical styles, he's subtly highlighting the different perspectives at play.
Yeah.
You hear that initial shock and judgment.
Right.
Then that shift to relief and vindication.
Yeah.
It's like he's prompting us to think about how we form our own opinions and how complex these situations really are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. It is. And in the liner notes, he actually talks about how this was inspired by older Greek songs that used to address current events.
Interesting.
Like it was a way to connect with what was happening in the world.
Yeah.
Which seems like kind of a lost art these days.
It's so cool. It reminds us that music can be more than just entertainment.
Yes.
It can be a way to process what's happening around us.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
And to find meaning in it.
Yeah, to find meaning in the chaos.
And that leads perfectly to Finis Vitae sed non amoris.
Oh, yes.
Which is life ends but not love.
Στα γεράματα ελπίζω να τραπώ του ερωτά ξαναβαδίζω.
Now, this title alone is just a trip.
Right.
It's Latin. It's taken from this sci-fi novel by Stanislaw Lem called Solaris.
Right.
So already we have multiple worlds colliding.
And then you add in the subject matter.
Right.
This mature man's love for a much younger woman.
Yeah.
You can hear how he blends those classic Greek sounds with a touch of that slow, bluesy rock and roll.
Nice.
It creates this really unique atmosphere.
It's nostalgia and heartbreak all rolled into one.
Yes.
It's a mashup.
Talk about a mashup, yeah.
Okay, my head's spinning. So we've got this like forbidden love theme happening.
Right.
But then we're evoking all these different eras, different cultures.
Exactly.
Is this semiological counterpoint again?
It is. And he even uses the lyrics to kind of challenge our perceptions.
Ooh.
There's a line where he sings, "Love doesn't look at age and always returns to zero. Gyros doesn't count the years," she tells him. "And if everything ends now, I won't cry."
Wow. So he's really saying love is timeless.
Yes.
It transcends.
It transcends all
expectations. Yeah.
Man, this guy's making me work.
I know, right? Let's take a breather.
Okay.
And we'll come back for part 2 because we got a lot more to talk about with Panopoulos.
I do. You do.
Now we can't talk about this new album without talking about the musicians who brought it to life.
Right.
Panopoulos is joined by this group called The Great Old Ones.
Okay.
Which, fun fact, is a play on a term from H.P. Lovecraft.
Oh, really?
But not that the music is particularly Lovecraftian, of course.
Gotcha.
And their name actually makes a lot of sense when you think about the album's themes. It's playing with old and new, tradition and experimentation.
Yeah.
And the band itself seems to embody that same spirit.
Totally.
It's such a fascinating mix of musicians with such diverse backgrounds.
Yeah. Each one brings something really special.
Absolutely. We've already talked about Captain a bit. You know, former Navy officer, painter, Byzantine music scholar. He's got it all. A real Renaissance man. Okay.
His real name is Christos Katsoulis.
Right.
Byzantine music is known for its modal scales and its intricate vocal melodies.
Okay.
So I imagine it adds a certain richness and depth to the album's sonic.
And then you've got Yannis Monopoulos, this rock and metal musician and producer.
And he's the son of a famous Greek rock guitarist.
Right. It's like this incredible musical lineage being passed down. I bet he brings that raw energy and technical expertise to the project, which really complements Panopoulos' folk sound.
And then there's Yannis Valvis. He's a mathematician, but he's also really into audio engineering. Mm-hmm. So I'm guessing he's the one who makes sure the album sounds amazing.
It's fascinating, right? It's like this marriage of science and art, that meticulous attention to detail. It shows how much Panopoulos cares about the sonic landscape he's creating.
And then we have Thanos Anagnostou on drums. This is actually his first time recording.
Oh, wow. A debut.
Yeah. And his background is in rock, blues, jazz, even some ethnic music.
That's incredible.
Yeah. I'm really excited to hear what he does. Antonis Pelikanis is on double bass. Mm-hmm. He's classically trained.
Oh, nice.
But he's also played a lot of Greek music.
So he's got this really solid foundation that bridges the gap between classical and traditional. I bet his bass lines are just so rich and full.
I can't wait to hear them. And then there's Vangelis Vasileou on keyboards and Alakostomatopoulos.
Playing percussion and idiophones,
Idiophones.
which are basically instruments that make sound through vibrations.
Okay.
Think like xylophone or bells.
Gotcha.
But here's the kicker.
Yeah.
He was also a founding member of Panopoulos' previous band,
Yeah, Korax.
Korax.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And he illustrated his book of short stories.
That's amazing.
This guy gets around.
He's everywhere.
It's like everyone on this album is connected by this invisible thread.
Yeah, they keep popping up in each other's projects.
You can really feel that sense of camaraderie in the music. It's incredible how much talent is packed into this album.
Yeah.
A former Navy officer, a jazz percussionist, a visual artist. The list goes on.
It's amazing.
It's no wonder that Corgo Napuo is such a unique and engaging listening experience. Now, you mentioned female vocalists earlier.
Yes.
Tell me about them.
So there's Eleni Rhoda,
Okay.
who brings this really powerful voice to the song Finismo. And Ion actually mentions in the liner notes that her contribution really elevates the song.
It sounds like he really values the input of his collaborators,
He does.
which is so important in any creative process.
It is.
Okay, so who else?
And then there's Anna Sopiadou on backing vocals.
Okay.
She's got quite a history in the Greek music scene.
Yeah.
She's worked with artists like Eleni Vitali and Spyros Sakis.
Ah, wow.
And then finally there's Sofia Kopsidou,
Okay.
who does some backing vocals, but she also created the album's artwork and photography.
Oh, that's interesting. So her involvement spans both the visual and auditory aspects of the album.
It does.
Which feels very in line with Ion's multidisciplinary approach.
Exactly. And speaking of Sophia, her artistic approach is really interesting. She describes herself as a cartoon who leaves behind black ink stains.
That's such a striking image.
Yeah.
And I can see how that aesthetic would translate well to album art.
Right.
It's like she's bringing a visual representation of semiological counterpoint to the project.
I love that interpretation.
Yeah.
It's like this idea of unexpected juxtaposition isn't just about the music itself, but about the entire creative package.
Yeah.
The visuals, the liner notes, even the collaborators themselves.
It's funny, even with all this like boundary pushing and complexity,
Yeah.
there's something really approachable about his music.
Yeah.
Maybe it's that like Meraki,
Yeah.
that pure joy of creation that just kind of shines through.
That's a good point. He's making us think, but he's not taking himself too seriously.
Exactly.
And that brings us to a song that's a complete 180 from this love story we were just talking about.
Okay.
His version of The House of the Rising Sun,
A classic.
a classic. And what's fascinating here is that he doesn't just translate it.
Right.
He makes it Greek,
Yes,
weaving in these traditional instruments.
he does.
It's like hearing a familiar story told in a whole new language.
Yeah, with different inflections.
Yeah.
της αυγής, γιατί μόναχα εκείνο ξαγρυπνούσε. Απλό χέρα μας χάριζε νύχτες ειδονής και στον
And if I'm remembering my Greek music history correctly, he's drawing a connection here between rock,
Yeah,
which is, let's face it, a very American sound,
very American.
and Laiko Rebetiko,
You got it.
that Greek style that we were talking about earlier.
It's that semiological counterpoint at play again.
There it is.
Two seemingly different musical worlds.
Yeah,
And he finds that thread that connects them.
I know, right? But he argues that the way Eastern scales are used in modern bouzouki music, which is, central to Rebetiko, it's actually really similar to how American music absorbed African scales and rhythms. So he sees this parallel evolution happening, despite the geographical and cultural differences.
That's a really fascinating argument. It makes you realize that music truly is this universal language,
It is.
even if it takes on different forms in different parts of the world. And speaking of different cultures, what's the story behind Krosukshtu Kailo? It sounds almost religious,
Yeah, it translates to the Cook's Prayer.
Yeah.
And it's a poem by this French aesthete, Robert de Montesquieu.
Okay.
And it's translated into Greek and set to music.
Interesting.
And the sound is surprisingly upbeat. It's got Celtic influences, major key chords, a 6-beat rhythm.
Wait, Celtic influences in a Greek song. Now I've heard everything.
Right. And as if that wasn't enough,
Yeah.
he has Captain perform it in this Byzantine chanting style. So you've got French poetry, Celtic music, Byzantine chanting, and Greek lyrics all in one track. My semiological counterpoint radar is going off again.
There it is again.
και για τον ουρανό ψάχνες με μήλο και με νερό της θάλασσας έβρασα πέτεινο.
He's creating a musical tapestry that spans continents and centuries.
It makes you wonder, does art have to be tied to a specific place in time?
Right? Or can it transcend?
Bring it to transcend those boundaries.
These boundaries.
And become something universal.
Absolutely.
Man, that is deep.
Yeah.
It really makes me appreciate Panopoulos even more. It's like, he's not just a Greek artist.
Yeah.
He's a global artist.
A global artist.
Point.
This guy is like a musical mad scientist. I mean, he's blending all these different elements, and somehow it all works.
He has a vision.
He does. He's got a vision. So it's all about finding these unexpected connections, these moments of friction that spark something new and exciting.
I think that's a great way to put it.
Okay, I'm hooked. What other musical experiments does he have up his sleeve?
Okay, well, get ready for My Master. And this one's dedicated to the Marquis de Sade.
Χάνει το χρώμα της, θύμα κι αυτή μια σκέψης μόνο κόμμα της. Μα έρχεται αυτός πιο σκοτεινός κι απ' το σκοτάδι, άλογος και είδον να δέσει σε ένα υφάδι.
So it's, well, it's as provocative as you might imagine.
Oh boy, he's really going for it with this album.
He is. He even mentions in the liner notes that he expects this one to, to ruffle some feathers.
Yeah.
With both conservative and progressive listeners.
I can see that.
But he's not doing it just for shock value.
Right.
He's exploring these complex themes of desire and power. And the singer, Eleni Rhoda, she's a veteran, and she absolutely nails the performance.
I have to admire his boldness. He's not afraid to push boundaries and make people uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's what makes him such a fascinating artist. He's not just creating music, he's creating conversations. Mm-hmm. He's challenging us to think critically about the world around us.
Okay, so let's keep this conversation going. What other thought-provoking tracks are waiting for us on Room Strike? So we've explored like the more complex, even controversial side of this album.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of curious, does he ever give us a break from all this intensity? Something, I don't know, a little more simple.
He does.
Okay, good.
There's a track called Mariana on the Tram.
Κάθε βράδυ αργά που γυρίζεις, κατά τύχη ξανά να απαντήσεις την ωραία Μαριάννα στο τραμ. Στα τζάμια θα σκάει το χαλάζι και εκείνη με βλέμμα ατλάζει. Ένα βίπερ παλιό θα διαβάζει η Μαριάννα στο τραμ.
And it's a minor key ballad, very stripped down, melancholic.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like a bit of a palate cleanser after all those intense flavors. What's the story behind this one?
It's inspired by a real encounter. He saw this beautiful woman on a tram in Athens, and there's this fleeting connection, this moment of unspoken longing.
Ah, those misconnections.
I know, right?
They can really stay with you.
They do. And that's what he captures in this song, that bittersweet feeling of what could have been. He says he's preserving that moment, letting it ride on, as he puts it, the tram of unfulfilled longing.
I love that image of like turning a fleeting moment into something lasting, something worth remembering.
Exactly. And speaking of lasting impressions, let's talk about
The Bad Orgasm. What is he getting at with that title?
Well, so it's a spoken word piece over electronic music. And basically it's about this night of partying that ends in a brothel and the feeling of emptiness he has the next morning.
So it's not really about a bad orgasm, literally, but more about that fleeting nature of pleasure.
Yeah.
That search for something more.
Exactly. It's like that feeling of, is this all there is?
Yeah,
You know?
I get it.
It's raw, it's honest, and really thought-provoking.
It also connects back to some of his earlier work, right?
It does. So back in the 80s, he was doing these experimental pieces with Alekos Tsamatopoulos called sound documents. So this spoken word style isn't new for him. But he's using it in a totally different way here to explore a new theme.
Yeah, it's always fascinating to see how artists kind of evolve over time, how they revisit certain forms, techniques, throughout their career. So we've gone on this sonic roller coaster. We've explored all these different genres, these intensely personal themes, can be transformed into something beautiful and meaningful.
Absolutely. Okay, but before we get too philosophical here, we got to talk about the final track on the album.
All right, Des.
Which is Exit.
Exit!
And this one seems to bring the curtain down on the whole experience.
It does. Every time I think I have Panopoulos figured out, he throws another curveball.
Yeah, this Exit sounds unsettling.
It does. It does.
Παράσταση τελείωσε. Βαριά η πορφυρή αυλαία έπεσε και δεν ακούστηκε ένα χειροκρότημα ούτε το χρόνο.
He describes it as the end of a theatrical performance, but instead of applause, there's just this silence.
Like the audience is holding their breath.
Yes.
Not sure what to make of what they've just witnessed.
Exactly.
It gives me chills. And then in the liner notes, he says he's grappling with this self-doubt.
Right.
The fear of being forgotten.
Yeah, it's like he's anticipating the listener's reaction.
Yeah.
Or lack thereof.
It's vulnerable.
It is.
It's almost heartbreaking.
It is.
Because here's this artist who's so bold.
Yeah.
So confident in his artistic choices.
Right.
And yet he's still wrestling with these universal fears.
Right. Absolutely.
Will my work resonate?
Yeah. Will I be remembered?
Will I be remembered?
Yeah.
Man, that's relatable.
I know.
Even for those of us who aren't creating art on this level.
Yes, it is.
It makes you think about the legacy we leave behind, It does. The impact we make.
However big or small.
However big or small.
Right.
It's a poignant way to end an album.
It is.
That's been so full of surprises and challenges.
And thought-provoking moments. But before we wrap up our deep dive into Room Strike.
Yeah.
There's one more layer I think we need to unpack.
Oh, I thought we covered it all.
Yeah.
What did I miss?
So in the liner notes, Panopoulos talks about how he came to this realization that artistic engagement is also inherently involuntary and purposeless.
And it's a reminder that art can be so much more than just entertainment. It can challenge us, provoke us, make us question everything we thought we knew.
Yes.
This guy's playing with us.
He is.
I love it.
He has a sense of humor.
Yeah.
But there's also this depth to his work that stays with you.
Yeah.
Long after the music stops.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the key takeaways?
Okay.
What do we want our listener to walk away with?
I think the biggest takeaway is that Panopoulos is a master of challenging expectations.
Right.
He blends musical styles, lyrical themes, even historical texts to create something totally unique.
Yeah.
And he's not afraid to push buttons to make us think about things we might not want to think about.
But he does it in a way that's
playful.
Yeah, playful, engaging, a bit mischievous even.
A bit mischievous. I like that.
Yeah.
It's like he's inviting us to join him on this journey of exploration, to question everything, to find beauty in the unexpected.
And to embrace a little bit of that Meraki.
Oh, yes.
In our own lives.
That passion, that joy in creation.
Yeah.
That willingness to see the world with fresh eyes.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
I don't know about you, but I'm feeling inspired.
I am too.
So to our listener out there, we challenge you.
Yes.
Think about the semiological counterpoint.
Yeah.
If you were to create a work of art using this concept, what would you bring together?
Yeah, what boundaries would you push?
Let Panopoulos be your guide.
Yes.
Embrace the contradictions, find the connections.
Absolutely.
And most importantly,
have
fun with it.
Have fun.
This has been an incredible deep dive.
It has.
And I have a feeling this is just the beginning.
Oh, I think so too.
of our exploration of I.N.K. Panopoulos' world.
I agree.
Until next time, keep listening, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
Keep diving.